This isn't really about COVID. It's what COVID was used to advance. So why would we do another film about the symptom instead of the cause? This is a human thing. This is not a black or white thing. This is not a gay or straight thing. This is not a vaccinated or unvaccinated thing. This is communism. This is genocide. This is eugenics. This is depopulation. All these things that we were just very aware that we had to stay away from in 2020 are now so prevalent that we decided with this film, let's go for it.
It's not often, Mikki, where you get 2,500 people on the same frequency, all excited about something that you spent so much time. Where you're like, wait a second, we're all in this together. We all have to figure this out. Let's unite. That was a bold move.
We need to take responsibility for the fact that while our government facilitated the situation, we enabled it. People need to understand that all of that, all those divisive tactics are what dictators have used since the beginning of time. None of them would have been able to do what they did had it not been for them luring the masses into their cult. All of that is just to gradually herd us into what China is now experiencing, which is total control. If we could save the environment, would you allow us to tell you what kind of car to drive and how many miles you could drive a month? Well, of course. I mean, it's death or a little control, sure. I turned down $17 million to share the licensing of Plandemic. If we get lured in to selling any part of our soul, it's the beginning of the end for us. As J.P. Sears says in the movie, I'd rather pick up cans on the side of my highway than do anything that jeopardizes my truth and that would dishonor my baby boy, my son. What motivates me is my love for humanity. I love people, and I won't stop.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mikki Willis, the American independent filmmaker, philanthropist, and teacher. You are best known as the man behind the groundbreaking Plandemic documentary film series, the first of which was watched over 1 billion times worldwide. That film was subsequently banned on all major technology platforms, and the follow-up, Plandemic 2, Indoctrination, went on to register the largest live stream audience of a documentary film in history on our very own Digital Freedom platform. Your latest film and the third installment in the series is Plandemic: The Great Awakening, which has racked up millions of views in just under a week. The movie examines what's really happening in America as the West edges closer to the Chinese model of mass surveillance and dehumanization, while our children are targeted in a cultural war that is destroying the family unit. Mikki, welcome back to London Real.
Brian, good to be back, full circle.
Man, it's great to have you. First of all, congratulations on the premiere in Austin. You know, I just came back from that place a few months ago. I didn't know you had a movie theater in downtown that could hold 2,500 people. You had the live links. You had people on different microphones. J.P. Sears, who I love, was there. Alex Jones was there. I mean, it was a proper production, red carpet premiere. That's a big deal. How was that evening for you, just to be a part of that with all those people around you?
You know, it was actually surreal. I was coming off of a crazy deadline just to get the movie finished. So we were barely sleeping. So my head was in a fog, and I kept looking around thinking, is this really happening, or am I in some kind of a lucid dream right now? Are we here? The movie's actually premiering and all these people are here to support it. This is incredible. It was really a flawless evening. It was the production that the High Wire provided for the red carpet event, and all the way through. The person, Victory Boyd, who sang the national anthem, she made people cry in the first 20 seconds. It was incredibly powerful evening.
Wow, I could just feel, it's not often, Mikki, where you get, 2,500 people on the same frequency and a really high frequency, all excited about something that you spent so much time. And I could kind of feel it through the screens there. We've been talking to Del for 3 years. He's actually on the show on Friday, and it was great to see them supporting you with Highwire. And then, of course, just a great cast of characters from JP Sears to Alex Jones, and there was tons of people there. So it looks amazing. We still premiere our films in London, but I still remember the process of booking the theater like 6-8 weeks out and then trying to find the film. And I always used to equate it to like driving a car 100 miles an hour into a brick wall, just hoping that something's going to happen. And so I think I know what it feels like, and it's a tricky situation. So congrats on, getting your edit done, for the time.
Thank you.
We have a really wild intertwined history between London Real and the Plandemic series, and I really had to think about it before we had you on tonight. First of all, people need to watch this film, so they can watch, I think, all three on your website, and we'll have links below. But early on, when we first started catching heat for broadcasting conversations, the big one was April 6, 2020 for us, where we had the second largest YouTube live stream in the world, and it was banned about 30 minutes later. Right around then, I think Plandemic 1, that first 26-minute piece with Judy Mikovits, was making the rounds, and it was having a hard time staying somewhere. I think we got introduced to Judy, and pretty quickly we put that piece on our Digital Freedom platform. And so we were one of the places where you could kind of find it when it was really hard to find. You couldn't type the word in, etc. And then in August, when you came out with Plandemic 2, we ended up live streaming it on that platform. I got a great story afterwards because our channel got demonetized after that. It really pissed the people at YouTube off. And then to be able to support you on this the third time, yeah, it's pretty amazing that we've kind of seen that whole journey. And so many people appreciate all of those films, and they're all really different, Mikki. That's what really surprised me about this film. Each one of your movies is very different, and maybe we start there because I remember talking to you about Plandemic 2, and you were like, "Oh, we're talking to this person and this person and this person," and I think I remember you doing like a total 180 from the Judy Mikovits, Fauci, kind of virus history, potential vaccine, all the way over to David R. Martin. And it was an incredible movie that was way ahead of its time, that was calling out the Wuhan lab back in August 2020, right? When I used to tell people you get put in a padded room if you said that back that early. And then I didn't know what to expect with this movie, and you did another 180 and brought really fresh ideas. So maybe we could start with that, and then is this weird when I talk about this last 3 years of film history with you?
Well, it's a really great point and great questions because there's a couple of answers to that question. The films have evolved as I've evolved. So as the further I go down the rabbit hole, the more I discover and the more I realize, well, this isn't really about COVID. It's what COVID was used to advance. So why would we do another film about the symptom instead of the cause? And so let's go a little deeper each time. And then the other reason for that very unique trajectory is that, back in, say, May of 2020, when the first one was released, Plandemic 1 was released, and then we started to work on Plandemic 2, there were certain subject matters that we knew, I don't want to preach to the choir. Why would we want to just give more information to the converted and we all get to live in our echo chamber and say, yeah, we're right? Why would we want to do that? I want to build bridges with my films. And when in doing so, you have to be very aware of what my team we call trigger words, because everyone's very easily triggered these days, especially the people that are not necessarily with us. And so there were subject matters in 2020 that we wanted to approach with indoctrination with Plandemic 2. We wanted to talk about eugenics, and it was clear that the world wasn't ready to hear that yet. We wanted to talk about communism and what's going on, and the world wasn't ready to hear that yet. So we were very aware of we have to deliver this when the people can actually receive it. Otherwise, they will just obsess upon that one subject and they will turn away from it. And then in that case, why are we making this film in the first place? And so the good news, and I guess also scary news, is 2.5, 3 years later, everyone's ready for those subject matters now because it's right in our face. And so what we couldn't talk about in 2020, we can talk about freely now in 2023, because everyone's saying this is communism, this is genocide, this is eugenics, this is depopulation. All these things that we were just very aware that we had to stay away from in 2020 are now so prevalent in the mainstream lexicon that we decided with this film, let's go for it. Of course, there are a few things I held back on that probably in 2 years from now will be, free to go. But in general, we said, let's make this one about the big picture so people can understand and make sense of this crazy world.
Yeah, well, let's go a little deeper on that, because something I noticed in the very beginning of this film, you're giving a speech, an outdoor speech to a crowd somewhere in America, I don't know where it is, and you say something very, very important that maybe ties into what you just said. You say to the audience, whether you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated, something like, we're all here to heal.
You're welcome here.
Yeah, you're welcome here. And I was like, damn, that's such a powerful statement that you don't hear very often, and whether it's said overtly or not, it's said somehow, especially in these circles and, people that have been so right, like, you have over the years, to where you were right and you were wrong and we were right and you're them and we're us. But like, that's a beautiful way to open the film, where you're like, wait a second, we're all in this together. We all have to figure this out. Like, let's unite. That was a bold move. I guess that was very intentional on your part.
Yeah, very much so. That was a talk that I gave at a rally called Defeat the Mandates in Los Angeles. And that's how I was the first speaker of the event. And I came out to let everyone know that they're all welcome here. It said, whatever color, creed, religion, whatever it is, whatever sexual orientation, if you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, you're all welcome here. And I think that for me, that's the antidote to the major issue we have out there when it comes to division. This is all a game of divide and conquer. They cannot conquer us without dividing us. When we are together, divided we stand, united we stand, divided we fall. And those words are, 2,600 years ago, those words were first recorded. And there's a reason they have survived the test of time, because that is what is paramount for us to recognize. And all this demonization, the way that the unvaccinated were treated as the lepers of this age, as the bottom of class, as the ones that would be led to the gas chambers if some people were given that choice. People need to understand that all of that, all those divisive tactics are what dictators have used since the beginning of time. And if you look at from Mussolini to Lenin to Mao Zedong to Hitler, all of these dictators that are at the top of the list for committing the most genocide, like Mao Zedong, 80 million people, and the other ones aren't far behind, who forced their own citizens to starve, or they were tortured. They did this. None of them would have been able to do what they did had it not been for them luring the masses into their cult and convincing them through the power of groupthink that what they were doing was right, that the bad people need to be stopped. And in Mao Zedong's case, he was able to, he enlisted high school children into what he called his Red Guards. And they turned on their teachers. Some of them killed their teachers. They turned on their parents. They celebrated when their parents were tortured and executed. This is how deep they went into the psychological fog, that they felt that if they could do anything in service, even the ones that were being put, in some cases, being executed, it's well known in history through the Russian Revolution and on, that they actually were proud to be tortured and executed if it was in the name of the party, that they thought it was some kind of a noble sacrifice they were making. And when you understand that people can be manipulated to that degree, that they would literally turn in their own family members and celebrate at their demise, that is for me, is an indication of something far deadlier than all the other narratives that we're being told are a threat to our lives, is just our tendency to turn on each other. And so for me, opening up the movie with a "you're welcome here," to letting people know immediately that this is a human thing. This is not a black or white thing. This is not a gay or straight thing. This is not a vaccinated or unvaccinated thing. All of that is being used against us so that we fight each other, so that we actually enact what a lot of the Chinese military follows, which is Sun Tzu's art of war, which is to defeat the enemy without fighting. That is to turn the enemy against themselves so they destroy each other. And that's what's happening to us in America. And what happens in America affects all of the world. We are the firewall for the rest of the world. And that's why we're also having the movie now translated into numerous languages so that everyone can wake up to realize we're all being used. And all these dictators use the terminology, which you know well, useful idiots. They called their own people useful idiots. And those useful idiots were the first ones that were, really put to sleep and or put in labor camps after the task was achieved by the dictator. And so people need to wake up to understand, and it's happening massively, particularly here in the States, that people of color are waking up to say, we're being used. And a lot of the gay community is waking up to say, look, this transgender thing has gone too far. We're all being pitted against each other. We're all infighting now. And this is what they want. They wouldn't be happier with anything less than civil war. And as I point out in The Great Awakening, there's a big benefit to when we're warring here. There's a big benefit to when we're rioting in the streets. Because if you understand that Karl Marx really created the philosophical ideology that almost all communism is based upon, and all communist leaders praise as the foundation of their political ideologies, and that Karl Marx said that communism can be summed up in a single sentence: the abolition of private property. And that's something that needs to be taken very seriously, because if you understand that that's the "you'll own nothing and be happy," that's the why Bill Gates has bought all the farmland in the United States. That's why they allowed riots to happen while everyone else is locked down. Somehow it's okay though, if you want to go be part of a BLM riot, that's fine. Why is that? Because every territory that they had riots in, those properties plummeted in value. And all these black rock type of asset management firms rushed in, gobbled up all the property. And so never before have we had these multinational corporations owning single family homes the way they do now. And they're gobbling them up at thousands, per month. And so we need to become aware that they're trying to bring us into these 15-minute cities where you rent everything, you own nothing, and you won't be happy. Trust me. That's the only part of that sentence that is inaccurate. And that way, there's something that happens when you don't own material too. When you don't own your land, is you become less interested to learn about it. You don't need to necessarily learn about taxes. You just know somebody else is taking care of it. Think about how we all drive a rental car, right? I personally drive a rental car differently than I drive my own car. I don't necessarily think about where I park it, if it's going to get door dings or all of that, because it's a rental car. And if I examined years ago, I was very curious. The question was, what makes a ghetto a ghetto? I don't want to assume that these are just lower class people, but what turns an entire territory, a county, into a ghetto? What is that? And the answer can be summed up in lack of ownership. When you don't own your property, you don't take care of it. And when your neighbors aren't taking care of their property, it becomes a cancer. So you say, why would I mow my yard and put up a little white picket fence when cars are on jacks, and let's just let it all go? And you're paying money to the man, right? Your landlord is the man, the person that constantly reminds you that you owe them money. And so why would you take care of his place? Punch holes in the walls, graffiti it, whatever you want to do. And then now the esteem of where you live is so lowered that the morale, you have nothing to fight for, you have no pride, and that becomes then a lack of pride for your nation. And that's where we are right now, where there's very little love and pride for the incredible gift that America is.
So many important points there, Mikki. And I'm actually getting flashbacks to when we had, David Icke here and 5 episodes in that 2020 year that was so pivotal. And, he would say a lot of things in the first 2 hours of the episodes, but the last 30 to 40 minutes were always around this division concept. And he said, they're always trying to find new subgroups because it's all about dividing us. It's all about dividing us. And he used to always reiterate, people always forget this about his shows, that at the end of the day, we are all just energy. We are all the same. And as soon as we get on that, they can't control us. But when they pit us against each other, it's easy to control us. And so I'm so glad you're zooming out on that. And it's nice to see that people are starting to see that. One nice thing about the last few years is that it's been easier to see, the Matrix or whatever you want to call that. Talk to me about this concept of mass formation, because you introduced it in the film and I had never heard of it before. Is that something that you stumbled on when you were doing your research, and how would you explain it to anybody?
Yeah, well, I interviewed Professor Matthias Desmet, who wrote a book on totalitarianism, and he really has helped to amplify the awareness around the world of what mass formation is. And in short, mass formation is mass hypnosis. And I opened the movie with the admission that I was part of the mass hypnosis. So I come from the far progressive left, born and raised in California, so I didn't really have a choice. And I mean that literally. When you're born and raised in the Mecca of California, there is one political party, and to even consider the other party means you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're greedy, and all the horrible other labels that can be placed on you. And so, as we examine in the film, we call it weaponized compassion, because I realize that the way they capture people. And this is also an answer to why I've had so many people reach out to me that were just amazed that their brother, who was the smartest person they know, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, fell for it all, or their doctor, or their incredibly intelligent father, or whatever it might be. And so you have to understand that as we examine in the film, that I always say it's the highly educated and deeply caring people that are the most vulnerable. And it's the people somewhere in the middle who work with their hands, who somehow have a connection with the earth still, and somehow have a connection with their own humanity, that were the ones that have a little common sense left to say, I'm going to wait, I'm going to hold off. This doesn't sound like a logical, wise move to put something experimental into my body. I'm just going to hold off for a couple of weeks. Let me see how this goes. While the other ones who, the highly educated people, are the ones who spent so much time bowing to authority. Their whole life has been in some kind of government-funded education, university, whatever it might be, med school, law school. And so they've become so adept at just listening to the person who has more stripes than they have, that they don't question authority anymore. And that becomes very dangerous. Then you have, I don't consider myself in that ranking. I consider myself the deeply caring person, raised by a single mom with 2 sisters and a gay brother. I had a lot of feminine input. So I was very, sensitive about helping people. And I was always told, always make sure that you go out and you meet the people who are, the janitors at the school. They're real people, and get to know them. My mother was very much like all people are equal and loved them all equally. And so, it really instilled this balance in me that I recognized later when I was on the road with Bernie Sanders. And that's where my awakening began, was I hear this gruff little character start to regurgitate these talking points that really moved me. It's like there are people that are not being treated fairly. And at that time, coming from this kind of what I recognize now as a kind of a communist, socialist perspective of that there's the working class, the laborers, and then there's the elite class who just enslave us, right? I felt that I was part of that class. And then Bernie Sanders comes along, he starts talking about helping women and people at the bottom and minorities, and it just struck me. And I remember, I said out loud many times, I wish when I was growing up, we were raised on welfare. Mom with 4 kids on her own, her husband was killed. And And I thought, I wish we had someone like this when I was growing up, someone that could speak this way, that recognized our suffering, what we're going through. And so I bought into it fully, and I ended up on the road with him, and I traveled from Los Angeles all the way to Philadelphia. While I was on the road with him, that's when my awakening started, because I edit what I shoot, and I've learned through the years, I know when I have a complete answer to my question, and I won't stop until I get that answer, because I don't want to get back to the edit bay and realize they didn't really answer my question. So I don't really have a totality of a story here. And I'd never experienced the dissatisfaction of answers to my questions like I did when I was on the road with Bernie Sanders. I would ask very clear, very direct questions. What is the difference between socialism and democratic socialism? And they say, well, it's this socialism, but it's by and for the people. It's different. People get to control it. And I'd say, okay, well then how do you pay for all the different things that you're wanting for free? And they'd say through taxation. And I would say, well, who's going to collect the taxes? And their eyes would cross. And they'd say, I guess the government. And I'd say, interesting, do you trust the federal government? No. But you want to give them more of your money? More of my money? You want to give, and do you like the way they spend your money now? No, it's terrible. So you think giving them more of your money is going to somehow correct that? Like what, there's something missing here. Are you guys seeing this? And no one was willing to really delve into that deeply with me. It was just kind of like, stop asking the questions. It's going to work somehow. We don't know. Just vote for Bernie. And then I saw Bernie do what a lot of my friends said he would do, which is kind of cower to the elite, go full out in support of Hillary Clinton, and vote for a lot of things that I was shocking that he voted for. And I woke up because I asked myself a critical question that I think all of us need to continue to ask ourselves until the day we die, because there is so much force coming at us to hypnotize us. I know as somebody who has produced media and advertisements for years, it is all about capturing our attention. Our attention is the rudder of our ship. And when you allow these corporations and these ad agencies to take the wheel of your rudder, they'll steer it to wherever they want it to be. And that's why so many people end up on another continent wondering how in the hell they got there. And so we have to maintain the mastery. We have to become the masters of the captains of our ship, to where we steer our attention where we choose it to go. But right now, most of us, to some degree, our attention has been captured to some degree. A trigger word can be stated, we see a billboard and it can trigger hunger or anger or whatever it is. We're really susceptible to all this influence around us at all times. And so, the mass formation is this through weaponized compassion, by convincing everyone that they're doing the right thing. So first you have to create the environment of meaninglessness. So people have to be in a place of feeling detached. And like my life isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm not quite doing what I wanted to be doing, which is a vast majority of people that are just maintaining their lives with a job they never imagined doing. And now they're just trying to pay their cell bills or their rent or whatever it might be. Then you give them the opportunity. You play up a narrative so intensely that you convince them that these people that are ignoring science are a danger to life itself. So at the root of this is actually something benevolent, Brian, and that is people's love for life. So they think they're defending life, because they say these people are a threat to life. They might kill your grandmother. And all you have to do to be part of this, the good tribe, is put on a mask and let people see that publicly. And then you are now part of the meaningful tribe. Now you have meaning. Now you have connection. And so these people go from just feeling like they're detached and leading a meaningless life to suddenly they're part of something that matters. And that's why to this day, some people are still wearing masks, because they don't want to let go of that. They don't know how to obtain that connection and that status of feeling important on their own. They don't know how to generate that. So they just hope that this comes back and we can all, live within this illusion that these people are the good ones and these people are the bad ones. But that's how all dictators got their own citizenry to act against each other, to literally commit acts of genocide against each other, is by convincing them that those are the evil, wicked ones over there. And while I remind all the crew that I'm part of and all the movement that's happening on this end, I just say, be very careful, because we're having a very similar conversation. We're the freedom fighters now. We're the good ones, and they're all the bad ones over there. We have to be really careful with that to come back to a place of recognizing. And because I was on the far other side of this whole thing, it's hard for me not to have compassion for those who are in a state of pure mass hypnosis. Because the key for me that unlocked it, and I'll stop after this, is the first question I asked myself when I was on the road with Bernie Sanders and getting these crazy answers to my very clear questions was, are they hypnotized? Like, these people seem to be hypnotized. Like, they're just in a fog. They don't know why fully. They can't answer the questions, but they're 100% on board with an ideology that they don't 100% understand. Are they hypnotized? And then I had an awakening. I realized, well, hold on. I am they. I'm part of them. Am I hypnotized? And that's the question that I think we all need to ask ourselves ongoing, because this trap is so elusive that even, again, highly educated or deeply caring people can be trapped at any moment to join the next cult, the next collective, where we surrender our sovereign intelligence for the ideology or the collective agreement of the group. And so that's the question that I asked myself that unlocked that stranglehold of hypnosis on myself. And then I literally, like I say in the movie, it was like a faith healing. Just instantly, the moment I started to look at myself and say, am I hypnotized? Then I looked around and I started to notice sickle and hammer stickers, Che Guevara stickers, linen shirts, all this pro-communist stuff around me. And I couldn't even see it before. I just thought they were memes or t-shirts, whatever. And then I started asking that question, like, is that a sickle and hammer on your laptop? Yeah. What is that? Are you joking? What is that about? Oh no, that's socialism is a stepping stone towards communism. I said, like, you want communism? Not that old kind of communism. There's a new communism that's going to save America. And and I said, where did you learn that? And of course it was always, well, my university. And that's when I started to realize, wow, okay, I have been pulled into something here that is not what I thought it was.
All right, is the next film, are we going into universities on the next film, Mikki?
I have no idea what I'm doing next. Yeah, people keep asking me and I have no idea. Okay. I want to create something about fatherhood one day, so that might be the next thing I do, I don't know.
Okay, I would be curious about the university thing. Look, you made some great points there, fascinating stuff. I think it's always worth asking yourself, are you being hypnotized about all sorts of things? I mean, we're constantly buying into narratives that we bought into because of where we were born or how we were brought up, whether that's what money is, what love is, what this is, what that is. And it's always worth trying to question that for sure. And it's great you're being healthy about it, even in your own movement, which feels really good to be in it. And you're the good guys on the winning side, but it's like, wait a second, we need to make sure we don't go down that road, and we got to bring everybody together. Tell me about George Edward Griffin, because he becomes an important part of the film. I had actually never heard of him before, and he's kind of becomes a narrator throughout. Just tell me a little bit about him, and because he's the one that really breaks down communism in a way that I really haven't seen it done in a film before. And again, it took me a bit by surprise, and I found it very interesting.
Yeah, well, G. Edward Griffin is a man who wrote the book Creature from Jekyll Island about the Federal Reserve. He's well known for that. He's a scholar, an incredible educator. Now in his almost mid-90s and still rocking it. Runs something called the Red Pill Expo. Still educating people out there. Has an online university. And so during my wake-up process, as I started to really go deeper and to realize that we're never going to solve any of these issues if we keep putting Band-Aids on symptoms. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. Ointment on symptoms, and then another lesion pops up over here, more ointment, and we just keep tending to these things until we get to the root and realize, like, what is the cause? What's causing these lesions on my body? What do I need to do emotionally or physically to actually prevent this from reoccurring? I went down this rabbit hole, and I, in the process, stumbled on a lot of people who have been giving these historic warnings since the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s of what was coming to America and what was going on. And very few people listened to them. And that's when I stumbled on G. Edward Griffin's work, and I watched one of his films. The first one I watched was called More Deadly Than War. And a lot of that, if not all of it, is online on YouTube that people can watch. I sat down and watched that, and I was just, originally I thought, well, I'll just use his work as a reference to drive my research deeper. But then as I continued to watch, he made these beautiful black and white movies. He explained to me, I was on the phone with him the other day, and he explained to me that he was speaking with rooms of 30, 40, 50 people, and he realized this is not going to do it. And then something was released, I forgot what it was. Some movie was released that he felt was total propaganda, and it reached so many people, some classic movie like Dinner with Andre or something he mentioned. And it reached so many people, he said, I need to start putting this stuff on film so it can be mass distributed. That's the only way it's going to make any difference whatsoever. And so he started making these beautiful black and white movies where he was basically sitting in his living room, very eloquent speaker, giving almost zero of his own opinion. He was simply reading from their manifestos, from their books, they being communist, saying, this is what we're going to do in America. We're going to divide the races. We're going to use black people as cannon fodder. We're going to convince the white people that they're helping black people. But all of this is, we're going to burn down the cities, and we're going to defund the police. We're going to create autonomous zones. Like literally went through all these steps of what they're going to do. And when I watched this, I thought, why isn't this known by everyone? Like, this is happening right now. I could put side-by-side comparisons to every point he's making to illustrate that it's here. It's happening right now in America. And then I thought, well, maybe that's what I should do. So there's a lot of that in the movie where we side-by-side comparisons where we say, here we are, in 1950 with the same signs, the same people, ACLU pushing these people up front for what they thought were civil rights, and they're all being used. They're being used to do the same thing that the BLM people were used for in the last few years. Nothing has changed. It's the same game, but nobody has really opened their eyes to it thus far, or not enough people have. There's a lot of people who have, long before I did. But no one was listening to these people. And I have the ability to create movies that are seen by a lot of people. So let's honor this man's work. And so I ended up getting a hold of him to let him know my intentions, and he was just delighted. He was aware of the Plandemic series, and then he invited me to speak at his Red Pill Expo, and I didn't know how much of his original lectures were going to be. I didn't even know he had other lectures because they're not all online. And so he actually sent me all of his masters. So I'm the custodian of all of his legacy I have the master reels, and we had them retransferred, and I started looking at these. He's got like 4 of these movies that are 90 minutes long a piece, 3 or 4 of these movies. And then he's also the famous interview with Yuri Bezmenov, the KGB defector out of Russia. People always refer to this very insightful interview with Yuri Bezmenov. G. Edward Griffin is the person off camera interviewing him. So he's responsible for so much. It's dedicated his life to wake up the world to what's really happening. And so after I started to really dig into the full body of his work, I realized, I said, we have to honor this man for what he's done. And let's, instead of just plagiarizing his research and his body of work, let's give him the full credit he deserves. And I, as I said, I was on the phone with him 2 days ago. I just got a call from him, and I was waiting for the call because I thought, he hasn't really called me since the screening. I hope he likes the movie. And somebody said that he had said it's excellent. So I said, that's nice, but that's kind of brief, kind of vague. And he called me the other day, and it was really beautiful that he was just so delighted by the way that he was represented, and that, that he knows that he can leave this planet with his legacy reaching the people the way that he intended it to do when he made these films in the 1960s. Wow.
That's fantastic. What an incredible, backbone of the film to kind of stumble on and then meet him. And it's an important part of the structure of what you're saying. I want to get into some other points, but part of me just thought now, Mikki, how do you put something like this together? Maybe take a quick aside and For people
Sure.
that don't know, I mean, you know, you're brainstorming these ideas, you're going down these rabbit holes, but ultimately you have to make a film, and then ultimately you have to give it by a certain date, and you have to make a bunch of decisions like you made. I mean, you did some dramatizations, you put that audience watching the movie. I mean, as a filmmaker, I was very curious by a lot of those decisions. They were really interesting, but like, how do you put it all together in 140, 1 hour, 42 minutes and say, okay, this is what it's going to be? I mean, as concise as you can tell me, how do you do that?
Sure. Well, it was the most challenging project that I've ever been involved in by far. I've had a few other projects that were challenging for other reasons, but as far as putting this narrative together, considering the fact that it's a movie happening in real time, even though we're using historical references, it has to change with the time. And so we would create an entire section, maybe a 10, 20-minute section that was incredibly important until a month later. And then we'd realize it's old news, it's dead, or it isn't what we thought it was. Scrap all of that. So it's making a movie in real time, constantly being aware of. Every day I'd come in and my crew would say, did you see what so-and-so said today and what CNN did and the undercover thing that just happened, or the new leaks, or, and we would, every day have to readjust. So I was constantly rewriting my voiceover because, Sri Lanka changed during the process of this film. And we said, okay, now we have to tell the full story. Let's make Sri Lanka a bigger part of this so people can understand the real cost of what we'll hopefully get into, like the ESG model, the environmental social governance model, that is really the thing that's, doing so much damage out there and causing these major corporations to go woke and extreme. But I appreciate your question because I know you've made films, and so you understand what goes into something like this. And it was absolutely challenging on especially the fact that, with Plandemic 1 and 2, with 2, we were simply following the work of David Martin and the patent trail. And we had one thing to prove, and that is that Anthony Fauci funded gain of function research through the NIH, and this is where it came from, and they're lying. And if you can just grok that, then you can understand something shady is happening, and they're lying to the people. Fairly easy story to tell. A lot of research involved, a lot of having to validate the patents and digging in and reading long, boring stuff. So it wasn't a cakewalk. But with the Great Awakening, wow, it was just a daily challenge of how we're telling the big picture now, and how much of it do we tell? Because the challenge was everyone wanted to tell every detail about all of these bombshells. And I finally got my crew aside and I said, let's talk for a moment, because I had a breakthrough here, and I think we need to understand this movie can't be 4 hours long, and it's heading in that direction right now. And so I said, if we were criminal prosecutors and there was a con man who was accused of 100 crimes, we could spend months in court trying to prove that each crime, that he was guilty of each crime.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.